you know what makes you happy, that's half the battle. But when we're under stress, when we're overwhelmed, we forget why we signed up for it in the first place. We're getting paychecks. What about our students when they're feeling overwhelmed and they have no idea why they're there? So I'm going to talk about how when we shift our perspective about what's overwhelming us to the food. I love the food. That whatever it is, that if we shift our perspective as to why we're under stress, and we help our students do it, that we model it for our students, then they can learn to thrive and actually grow under those circumstances. So the area of psychology that I actually turn to in my own overwhelming as a school psychologist, some of what you see and what I see, I don't necessarily go into schools to see the best of conditions with kids, is that I needed to focus more on their strengths to help me help them even better. There's an area of psychology, we hear about burnout in different professions, with psychologists, with teachers, with nurses. It's called compassion fatigue. So if you're somebody that feels very deeply, if you're sensitive to the concerns of your students, that works very well when you're first starting out. But over time, you end up carrying home not just your book bag, but everybody's book bag with you. Because you take them home. You want to take them all home. So the idea about positive strengths is we stop seeing our students and ourselves as victims, and we start to see ourselves as victors and them as victors. So we have to keep in mind that student stress and student success go hand in hand. Our own success, we require a certain amount of stress. If it's not there, then we're not going to be challenged to go to the next level. So back to focusing on strengths, that we think that we have to remediate the weaknesses first. But in fact, research in clinical practice and educational practice shows that when we can find the strengths within our students and within ourselves, that's what gives us the self-esteem, the momentum to keep going. And today's talk, you'll be getting a Cole's Notes version of today's talk. I know that everybody in this room knows what that means, a shortened version of it. I obviously have a more extended version of it. And so I also have had the opportunity to write 2 psychology textbooks while I've been here, and it is all based on these principles of positive psychology, humanistic psychology. We think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and once again we address the weaknesses, but not till we've had a good full plate of food do we address the weaknesses, or whatever it is, fitness, art, whatever it is that is not necessarily designed by the school system. Like when you think about the school system, the traditional school system is very narrow in terms of what's successful and what's not successful. And so it's very left-brain oriented, that it's very sequential, it's very sit in your desk, they don't have as many opportunities that you would in the college system. That's another reason I love the college system, is because it's so much more applied and it plays to people's strengths. When you're working with, this also includes everybody in the room. It includes your partners, it includes your children, it includes the milkman. Trust me, I'm practicing positive psychology wherever I go. That if we first focus on what's right, then we can start to deal with what's wrong. And people do ask me regularly if I'm always in such a good mood. 99% of the time. Because I am focusing on this, and I have found my dream job. So if you look up here, what I'm going to be focusing on today is resilience. And the idea that we all fall. Everybody in this room has fallen hard. And the question is, how do you get back up? How did you get there? And when you get back up, do you bounce? Do you bounce forward? What does it look like? A lot of these characteristics up here on the screen, these are things that we can tap into with our students. And it's the idea that education, I talk about education all the time, obviously, while I'm teaching psychology and the value of education. Education is the best thing that our students can do for themselves. Education lasts a lifetime. It's a resilience characteristic that if everything fails in your life, and we live in Windsor, we know what the economic situation is here. If you lose your job, you lose your marriage, your bank account is hitting the road, whatever it is, the one thing that you have forever is your education. And when I ask students, and within the first few weeks of school when they're telling people what they're doing. So for example, I'm teaching in the collaborative nursing program, 3 of my courses in the collaborative nursing program. When their friends ask, what have you been up to? And they answer, and they all answer the same way. I'm in nursing. I'm in police, whatever it is. I'm in fashion design. It's a really important part of the resilience trait education is, as an optimism, healthy eating, all of these things up here. So when I get to stress hardiness, the 3-factor model I'm going to talk about, an attitudinal model that we can look at in order to thrive under pressure, what you'll see is that if one thing on this list isn't working for you, trust me, at any given day, all these things aren't going to be working for you. Find the one thing that is. And it might be just going for a 10-minute walk. It might be talking with your friends on the phone or texting or whatever it is. So traditional psychology focuses on this side. Up until 1998, all of psychology focused on what was wrong with individuals. And then Martin Seligman at the address of the American Psychological Association said, we need to start focusing on what's right. And when you focus on what makes life worth living, when you wake up in the morning, do you say, oh, another day? Or do you say, another day? So a lot of that has to do with what's going on up here, which is what makes life worth living. I'm going to tell you this much. Me walking into the classroom, being excited about being there, thanking my students, telling them on a regular basis, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't have a job. Making them see it's authentic, that I'm excited to be there, gets them excited to be there. And that's part of high mental wellness, focusing on what's right, being engaged in what you're not going to love every part of your job. I say to my students, I get paid to mark, I teach for free. So you're not going to love every aspect of it. I know you can relate. And so the idea of wellness that we're hearing a lot more about is that enhancing our own wellness improves the wellness of our students. It improves the wellness of the college and your own high schools that you're working in. And then it also addresses the other side, say the 10 to 20% of our population that do struggle with mental illness, mental problems. It benefits all of us. So I'm going to give you just sort of an insight into one of the models that I use on a regular basis. The whole concept of this is we all have a past. For some of our students, it's 18 years long. But for us, it might be 48 years long. It happened. But what are we going to do about it? Once again, shifting from the victim to the victor. So I use the palm tree as an analogy for what resilience is. Because in Latin, resilience means to leap back. When we look at palm trees, we think, is it Christmas yet? You're going to go to the Caribbean, Florida, or whatever your memories are. You think really happy memories. But life isn't easy. Life is challenging, but it can also be meaningful and challenging. So on the right, you'll see that in the middle of a hurricane, which you may not have realized, that in the Caribbean islands or wherever there are palm trees, they need storms to grow. They don't grow in pleasant conditions. They don't thrive in the sunshine. The roots need to be strengthened when the hurricanes happen and the strong breezes happen. It's not like an oak tree that snaps in a hurricane, that a palm tree thrives under pressure. So that's why I'm actually using this example. The term hardiness, I'm from Kent County, corn to tasseling made me what I am. I remember coming home, yes, at 11 years old after corn to tasseling and telling my parents I better get straight A's for the rest of my life. So you can relate. We have some corn to tasselers in here. When I say that to my students, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So hardiness comes from the fact that there is one, and you can Google it, there's one strain of corn that's called a hardy strain that only grows under the worst of conditions, And they've done research to show that in all this downsizing that we've seen over the years, that the ones that remain, say downsizing like 50% of a company, that the people that remain, 25% will, if not 50%, will be adversely affected by it. And we see a lot of downsizing even in our own college. But 25% of what's left actually thrives. And in the article, which this is all on my website, so if you just Google Positive Psychology Talks or Dr. Andrea Dinardo, this is in more detail. So essentially, the 25% that remained that were stress hardy essentially said they saw it in their own mindset, because stress hardiness is all about mindset. It's not the circumstance, it's how they react to it. In quotations, they got rid of the dead wood. Because at that point in time, they saw their view of downsizing was, now this is an incredible opportunity to do different things that I couldn't do before. Or people that have been laid off from work. Why is it that some people never get up and get going, whereas others have other opportunities? It has all to do with mindset, and one of the mindsets is stress hardiness. Stress hardy individuals accept that stress is normal. It's to be expected. I don't know about you, but did anybody tell you it was going to be easy? No? Did your parents tell you on a regular basis it wasn't going to be easy?
Absolutely.
Anybody else brought up that way, that you better be prepared, it's going to be challenging? And then obviously we contrast it, and it's not all parents, and it's not all kids, it's not all teenagers, it's not all college students. But this is the problem when we try to keep our young people from adverse circumstances. Because I'd rather make mistakes when the stakes are small than when they're big. That we need to expect stress, it's part of it, and the question is, what are you going to do about it? One of the reasons, even in the counseling that I do, I will not spend a lot of time talking about what's wrong, because you're just strengthening those neural networks back to the victim. I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, there's nothing that I can do. Instead, we have to understand this is life. I want big things. I'll ask my students, who in this room wants big things, big, exciting things out of life? Who wants? So in order to get that, then you have to do something that you've never done before. And when you do something that you've never done before, it's going to be challenging. So these are the three components, and I'll start with challenge. These are, you need all three of these components to have what's called a stress-hardy personality. But the good news is, it can be learned, and it can be modeled. So challenge, as that quote said, is that change is normal, stress is normal. If you want that degree, if you want that diploma, if you want to make that hockey team, if you want that fancy purse, if you want to go on that vacation, whatever it is, there's a price to pay. So if you keep your eye on the prize, that's going to make a difference. But challenge is normal. Change is normal. What's interesting, if you're familiar with the Chinese language, there are two characters for the word challenge. The first character in it by itself is dangerous, and the second character is opportunity. So students, individuals that do not thrive under stress, see every challenge as a threat. Every challenge puts them into panic mode. So when you see that happening in your classroom, you see it in yourself, we all experience that. Then that's a sign that there's a skill that's missing, that there's something that needs to be reframed for them, that maybe it's as simple as lock that phone up for 24 hours, because, and that's people in the room included, because they're overstimulated. So there's a video on, I'm not going to show it right now, but it shows essentially all these famous people that we only know them for their successes, like Thomas Edison, Lucille Ball, Walt Disney, that they had a string of challenges before they got to that success. So another thing I'll have my students do too is interview somebody that is successful, including yourself, their teachers, their guidance counselors, and ask about the journey that it took to get you there. Because success is not a straight line. If success was a straight line, I would not be talking to you right now. This was not on my life agenda at 18. I did not anticipate teaching at a college in Windsor. This is the best thing that ever could have happened to me. When I walked on this campus, I came home, and I've never left, and I can't see myself leaving. If I saw the challenges in between what my own idea of my life was and what it's become as a constant threat, danger instead of opportunity, then I would have essentially just not left the house. So think about your own lives and the challenges that you've overcome. The other thing I'll do with my students too, right around midterm, when they're going into the danger side of opportunity, is to remind themselves of what it took for them to get into nursing, for example. So 1,000 people apply for 140 spots. They didn't just show up. I'll have them get out old report cards. I'll have them frame their acceptance letters. All these things that got them there. So they're not feeling threatened by the challenge. They actually feel capable of the challenge. The next one is control. So when you do feel out of control, that you don't have any say. How many changes have you been through in your position as an educator? How many principals have you been through? How many superintendents? How many ministry documents? How many different schools? Should I say that again? Ministry documents? One more time? No, I better not. That is where you feel out of control. You have no control over that. That's the impossible side of your job. So when I was saying earlier, I get paid to mark and I teach for free. You get paid every penny of your salary to have to revamp things over and over. And you don't feel in control. And for some of you, it might bring out anger, it might bring out sadness, but whatever it is, you're 5 years old and you have no control. So what we want to focus on is within those ministry documents and every other part of your job, when you don't feel that you're in control, where do you feel in control? So the idea that you might not feel in control of what the new principal has to say, but you certainly are in control of your exchanges and your connections and the way that you make your students feel and what they learn from you. You might not be in charge of what new school you're going to end up at, but you're certainly in charge of your own philosophy of education. You're certainly in charge of the attitude that you bring into the school. Just like my students too. They can be excited about the process, and I have to tell you at this point in time, on a regular basis to many of my high up above administrators at the college here, I show my students the door on a regular basis. And when I say that, when they are feeling overwhelmed that the college has done something to them because they can't believe they have to learn that, I'll remind them that it's a choice to be here and that you can leave if you want to. The scary part is that you're paying for the pain, and it's called your tuition. And at that moment in time, they really have a chance to rethink, and they do. That not one of them has taken the door yet, and they realize that they're choosing to be there. Maybe they'll end up in fashion design. So, which is not a bad thing. And that's the truth, though. I've had, obviously, students will switch programs, but in your life, when you're feeling out of control, you want to remember what you have control over. You want to help realize, like I do with my students and myself, where our freedom lies. We're in Canada, and it's tragic what happened 2 days ago. There's no question. But at the same time, in comparison to other parts of the world, we have freedom. We have choice. We can decide Tim Hortons, Starbucks, McDonald's, my preference, and I'm not being endorsed. We can decide what we want to play on our radio, any of those things. And so at this point in time, it's a good time when you don't feel in control to spend some time thinking about somebody else other than yourself. Because stress is very narcissistic. That when we're feeling stressed out, it's all about me. Oh my God, can you believe the way they looked at me in the hallway? I can't believe my new boss wants me to do this. Whatever it is. And then at that moment you go and you sit with it, maybe a more junior colleague, or that you take the time to help somebody at the grocery store, or you buy somebody coffee behind you, and you realize that we do have so many freedoms and we are in control. Same what we would do with our students. I say this for you, I say this for me, because when we practice it for ourselves, that's powerful. That they don't listen to us, but they feel us, and they certainly watch us. That's what's going to make the difference when you live the 3 C's of stress hardiness. And then the final C is commitment. Are you excited about your life? Are you committed to your job? Maybe you aren't. Maybe that isn't the part of your life that excites you. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's food. Whatever it is. That people that have what's called a joie de vivre, that's my French a little bit. I'm sure we have some French Is there a French high school in here? Okay, do you want to, I should have you say it for me. People that are excited about life are committed to something bigger than themselves. And that's what really excites me about education. This is why I'm so grateful to each and every one of you in this room, because you are providing a service for our future. Every time I look at my students, I think you are my future. They're the future of Canada. Some, yes, all are our future. So what are you in your job excited about that is bigger than yourself? Why are you there? You may have forgotten. Revisit 20 years ago. Bless you. So it's people that have a sense of purpose and meaning in everything that they do. I know when I walk through the hallways at St. Clair that it is my responsibility to be energetic, professional, and to be available to my students. That's what matters. So when I come to work, I come to be available 100% to them. That's, for me, that's my purpose, my mission, my vision. That's my side of professionalism. But that's my personality. So that's what my strength is. But each and every one of you have a different type of strength.